Hi guys. Right, so let me start by saying I have no idea what he said. Who has a translator on? Just show of hands. Nobody? Okay, so I'm going to move pretty quickly, a couple of hands. All right, I'm going to move pretty quickly, but hopefully it'll work because I don't know a lick of French, so apologies. But what I do know is humans. And I want to spend some time with you this afternoon talking about those people. I also love humans because nobody ever wants to sit in the front row. When everybody enters a room, the first thing you do is head to the back row. Just in case the speaker sucks, you want to get the hell out of the way. I get it. By the end of the afternoon, you're going to feel like this. If it doesn't already, this is kind of the world you're going to feel like, because at the end of the day, this really feels to me like where we are. You really want to take your desktop and you want to throw it away. And from my perspective, it all starts from our perspective here. So this is not us. You're probably sitting there going, why is AOL sponsoring this? Well, Eric Marie, he's looking after our office. He's here. There's a bunch of us here today. There's about 7 AOLers in town, and we'd love to hang out with you. So I'm going to spend almost a full hour speaking with you, but I'm going to hang out at lunch. So save your questions for lunch, because what I don't want to talk about is that business. I want to talk about what we do today. Now, quick update on us. This is us, and what we talk about is scale, openness, platforms, and data. We were bought by Verizon last year, so one of the largest telcos on the planet, but we also took over Microsoft. The only piece of Microsoft we do not represent is Bing. But everything else is combined with AOL, Microsoft, Verizon. They're the 4 things that our team can talk to you about. But I want to talk about humans. So let's get on with this. Are we cool? I'm going to talk about it in 3 things. I'm going to talk about culture, code, and creativity. So let's go. Here's culture. So if anybody grow up with one of these, by the way, quick show of hands. Anybody still use their Sony Walkman? Awesome. Because, roller skates are back too. But what's interesting about this is an example of a company that's all about culture, not about code. By the time they entered the world of code, all their interfaces were sucked and they were just left behind. But if you go too far the other way, you end up with this. Now, we love Google. Now, Google are wonderful. However, this is an example of a company that when you focus too much on code, you end up with this. And this is an example of Google getting it wrong. Now, I love Google. I love most things that they do, but this is not one of them. If you don't want any friends, walk around town with a pair of these bad boys on, because you'll end up with 0 friends by the afternoon. I promise you that. But I do know that code allows you to build things globally. So a lot of you represent global brands. That's all done with codification. That's what code does for us. But the thing I love more is local culture. Now, I would have normally inserted a photograph here of some local photographs, but I dropped my phone from 3rd floor of the hotel this morning, so I have no photographs to show you. So I had to put this in. This is an example of local culture. Now, in most English-speaking countries, and even you guys understand this, in Ghana, that's a very popular brand of cola called P. Now, for most of us, I'm not up for a big old swig of P cola in the morning. That's not really my bag. If you're into P, that's good. But what's fascinating to me is that I love this because it doesn't translate to most of the countries that we're in. It's all about culture, culture, culture. And if you think about it, one of the official words that was entered in the English Oxford Dictionary last year was this thing, an emoji. So we've moved from using words to a world of visual images and emojification. And it's amazing about this. The hard thing for me is that I actually don't know how to find this in a dictionary. I thought the dictionary was A to Z, but now we end up with emojis. But every year when I travel and I spend a lot of time with brands, there's always a word that turns up that I keep hearing. And the most overused word of last year was this: disruption. Now, I don't know what the equivalent is in France, but I can tell you this, man, is that if you think about it, I'm sure you have a version of this. Now, every brand I go into, they're like, oh, dude, I just want to disrupt. I'm like, oh, awesome. How are you going to do that? They say, we're going to use technology. I'm like, really? Holy shit, what about your crappy business model? So that's the thing that's really interesting, is that if you think about business being disrupted using technology, we get to real disruption. And here's an example of a couple. Airbnb. Imagine being a hotel chain that has to compete with a company that says every single hotel room is different. That's the value of Airbnb. Or you flip it over and say, well, what about Kickstarter? If you guys have a brilliant idea today, you don't have to go to the holding company to get the money. You don't even have to go to VCs. You can go to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Self-Start. The ability to invest in business has been democratized. Or think about Uber. Now, I know you guys in France don't really dig Uber. But what's amazing, you cannot stop this. The ability for people to want to be in control of how they locate, this is a very, very important movement moving forward. Right. But look, here's the deal, guys. Understanding human needs is half the job of fulfilling it, period. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of us will stand at a whiteboard and do this, quadrant planning. And you say, well, who are we trying to target? Strivers, believers, makers, achievers. This is a psychographic way of targeting humans. If you flip it around the other way and say, well, what if we went Maslow rule of hierarchy? What if we go human needs? Awesome. Both of these are very important, but I can tell you this, that technology is absolutely changing our behavior, not our need. We have human needs. It's part of our human DNA. This is an example of human need. Yeah, some of you guys might have used that last night. I heard it was a great time. But here's what's fascinating. Then people immediately want to talk about the connected human. They want to know what humans are up to, how we connect in with humans. And the first thing we go to are this something. So people think, well, maybe this is the human of the future, is it? How good's that image? If nothing else, I give you this morning. All right, so let's move on. Here's what's interesting. The topic du jour, the thing that people are really into right now is virtual reality. Now, I can either be very bullish or very favorable to virtual reality. If you want my favorable version of it, go and read about an article I wrote about on Adweek. But let me just talk about what I do know about it, and it's this. Today, if you and I go and watch a film, it's the director's point of view for 2 hours. So if you laugh at a scene and I cry at a scene, nothing changes. However, when you put a pair of these bad boys on, you are now the director. So your point of view and the emotion inside those technologies will actually allow us to understand that if you laugh at a scene and I cry at a scene, our content shifts because of it. So we're going to move into a world of emotions, which is going to be really, really interesting. But until we get there, we've got this to contend with. So what's happening is that a lot of people are building experiences around the goggles that makes you feel like you're on a ride. This is a cage that simulates what it feels like to be on a roller coaster. However, I would argue that if you need to be in a cage that big to feel like you're on a roller coaster, why don't you just go on a roller coaster? But hey, that's just me. To flip out, you've also got augmented reality. So you've got virtual reality, goggles, uninterrupted, unhuman experience, to augmented reality, which is spatially open, and you get to see the video in context. And here's an example of a lady trying on makeup being simulated on her face in real time. It's quite beautiful. The other reality we have is mixed reality, which is how do you move augmented reality around in the context of spatial. And that's what mixed reality is. So look for things like Magic Leap or HoloLens by Microsoft. And the other reality, so the fourth reality, is reality, which is where I would rather be with you guys this afternoon. So let's crack on. The one thing that I can tell you is that point of view around production is the new. So if you're going to shoot things like 360-degree video, that's great. But I can tell you this right now. The person who's editing your video is going to hate you because it takes hours and hours to edit 360-degree video. But you can have something, this is going to come out by Samsung later in the year, which is a video that records 360-degree video and it tethers to your phone automatically and broadcasts it in 4K. Pretty amazing piece of technology. And then you've got this. So this is a video from a guy who's just prepared to break his phone. So he's tied up his iPhone. He's put it into slow motion mode and he's gone skiing. And what you end up with is a beautiful piece of produced content. Pretty amazing, right? All at the risk of breaking your phone. The other thing about production that's interesting is this. This is beacon technology and a drone. So a lot of us, when we've done dronies, is the problem with it is it messes up with the ecosystem of nature. But this is an example of a drone that is targeted to a beacon, and this beacon happens to be a person. So what you can end up with is video that's quite beautiful, like this. So here's an example of video being shot without a camera person. So you end up with video like that, all shot directly from an automated beacon. So that's the sort of thing that we've got at your disposal when you're producing content, because everybody is a content producer today, I'm told. And then people want to talk about IoT, or the Internet of Everything. Now, or the Internet of Motions is really where it's going. But here's where it becomes fascinating. It's a $19 trillion business, according to Cisco, by 2020. And given it's a $19 trillion business, everything is now beautiful, and it's on our bodies, and everything is super smart. Now, what I mean by that is things like your television in your living room now bends. So you've got curved televisions. You've also got these sort of things. $99 little products that sit in each one of your rooms that measures your atmosphere and tells you if you're running too much air conditioning. To little things like this. This is a product called Hello. You clip it onto your pillow, and it monitors your sleep pattern. So it'll tell you woke up at 2:30 in the morning because a dog was barking. It has listening technology built into it. Or you've got this. This is the big-ass fan company. This is from America. You walk into a room, connects to your phone, it goes to your favorite preset. So a lot of these technologies are actually making us quite lazy. This is called Quitbit. If you're trying to give up smoking and you're a smoker in the room, this product will light your cigarettes, but it'll tell you the number of cigarettes you smoke versus your quota. It's gamifying your health. You've got this called Pacify. This is a smart pacifier, and this thing will monitor the number of times a child is sucking on the pacifier and tells you when it starts to teeth. How hilarious is that? Then you've got this.
Some smartphone cases just protect your phone. Others try to extend your battery life. A few have even tried to protect you, the user. But how great would it be if there was a case so intuitive, so powerful that it could do all three? Introducing Yellow Jacket, the world's first stun gun smartphone case. It protects your...
Okay, if you missed that, it's the world's first stun gun phone case. So what's happening is that this is no longer, I can't believe we call it a cell phone. I work for one of the largest telcos on the planet. I can't tell you the last time I took a physical phone call. What I am seeing is people wrap around these devices for it to become a super smart visual design tool. And that's an example that's pretty extreme, which is a stun gun. However, if you don't want to walk around town like everyone else with one of these black phones in our hands, you want to go to Asia, because check what they're up to, man. They're building these sort of things. They're building phones with flexible form, meaning you can go into the phone, and because it's now an open network, not a closed network, you can build physical things that extend that phone to be a different type of device. That's going to be pretty interesting if this actually takes off. However, again, as I said, if you don't want to walk around town looking like everyone else with your phone, you could go to Asia again to check out what they're up to. They've built the robot phone. Woohoo! Awesome. Asians, man, we're awesome. What about wearables? That's the other thing people want to know about. Now, wearables are interesting. Anybody have one on? Anybody have a wearable they don't have on? So what normally happens, more hands go up. So after about 6 months, we give up on a wearable. We're like, meh, whatever, dude. It does the same thing my phone does. It has an accelerometer in it. And also, you're super lazy at that point. You're like, nobody gives a shit if you walk 10,000 steps per day, by the way. So don't bother socializing that. But what I do find interesting about wearables is this. It seems relatively easy to build a wearable. It's extremely hard to market them. But this is some examples of the wearables that are available to you, and they're absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. They look stunning. Some have screens, some don't. Some look like old-fashioned watches. Some are actually very designed to look like supercomputers on your wrist. But what I can tell you is that they're pretty amazing devices now that are collecting data. If I speak to wearable companies, they don't talk about fitness or health. They talk about being data companies. And they're all different. Now, the one that's actually quite interesting coming out of Samsung, this is an interesting piece of technology, guys, is when I wear this watch, if I want to take a call, I want to hear a voice message, I just hold my ear. It uses my body as listening technology, which I think is pretty interesting. It's probably giving you cancer as well, but whatever, dude. You can deal with that later. This is an interesting piece of technology for wearable. This is called Pavlov. This is a wearable that will shock you if you decided you're not going to do something. So if you said, I don't want to reach for that third beer, and you do, this thing will shock you. And you have this wearable. This wearable actually monitors who you spend time with, not what you're doing with your time. It tells you, it connects with your calendars and your contacts and will tell you who you're spending your time with. Right. But there's 290 wearables, and the number one category is fitness. And what I do find fascinating about it is this. They're not just on our wrist and our face, all over our bodies, and they're on our cats and dogs. And if you do think it's limited to your wrist and the face, this gives you hope that it isn't.
Have you ever noticed that the world's most powerful men don't carry a wallet? In fact, have you ever seen them pay for anything? Well, now you can join them. Introducing the MJ Bale Power Suit. In collaboration with Heritage Bank and Visa PayWave, we've developed the technology to embed a contactless payment chip and antenna into the sleeve of a suit. So now you can pay invisibly wherever you go.
What do you think about that? And then on top of that, check this out.
And is that far up there? Is that right? Yeah, that's it. It's pretty sick.
If a player is tackled, then you get to feel the physical effect of that. If a player is nervous before a kick, then you get fluttering, you get that kind of sensory experience.
So here's the deal. Media companies are trying to make your experience of things like sports even richer because they're building sensor-plated technologies that you wear on your body in your living room. This is not Disney World anymore. You can do this in your house, which is a totally new dynamic of experiencing your brand. In addition to that, you've got this. This is by Mondelez. So they own a brand of chewing gum called Trident. They believe that when you chew chewing gum, you can focus on tasks. So what they've done is they've teamed up with a Japanese clothing designer and said, if I put my smart devices in my pockets, it blocks out all your network. You can get no updates, no calendar notifications, nothing. It becomes a dumb device so you can focus on interhuman connections. But I can tell you that what's amazing is the other language that could take off is gesture. So you may have to think about what your brand gesture looks like in the future because gestural-based language is already built into the DNA of Windows. It's also built into Google and iOS, so Apple has just announced gesture. But gesture will allow you to do things like this. Turn on televisions, turn on your lights, make payments. All of these things directly done by gesture. So you might have to think about what your brand gesture is moving forward if gesture-based languages come along. Cool. Right. So everything has built-in intelligence. So everything is collecting data on you, which means what? It means it's sending little bits of information to you when, where, what, why, and how you want it. And as more and more of us are wearing screens on our bodies, here comes the wearable web. Now previously, to go from cinema screen to smartphone, the aspect ratio is basically the same. But when you go to rectangular, triangular, circular, the information architecture delivered to that is radically different. So if you're a designer, that means amazing opportunity in the future because, again, information architecture of those devices is going to be radically different. So, okay, you're asking yourself, so what? We're in the business, I believe, of sight, sound, and motion. To do what? Drive emotion. Why? 75% of purchase decisions today are made emotionally. And then we justify it rationally. It doesn't matter whether we spend €5 on a bottle of water or 50,000 euros on a car. We all make emotional decisions. And that's just what we are as humans. Now, I grew up in the world of 4 Ps, as I'm sure you did. This crap. Product, promotion, placement. This was invented in the 40s. Now, I believe there are still 4 Ps. They're just different. It's about this. Platforms, performance, partnership, and pedigree. So there's still 4 Ps. They're just radically different today. Okay. So look, if you've been wondering where I'm from Australia. If you've been wondering about my accent this whole time, that's where I'm from. That's the town I grew up in. I'm from a little tiny bullshit town in the middle of nowhere. This is my family. I'm one of 10 kids. That's 12 people in a 2-bedroom house. I have a lot of therapy I'm getting through. If you want to talk about shit at lunch, man, I'm happy to. Or maybe at cocktails tonight. But that's my family. But it wasn't until I was 17 when I bought my first car, I felt freedom, independence, and self-expression. At 17, that's the generation I'm from. But today, kids are connected, aren't they? 37% of children under the age of 2 can operate your swiping devices probably better than you. And when you give them analog, they think it's busted. I could watch that all day, man. It's pretty amazing. Is that great? But hey, here's the problem. When I go to a restaurant and I see you with your children and they freak out, the first thing you do is grab your cell phone and say, please God, Johnny, shut up. And so we have to be careful that we're not generating a generation of kids losing their perspective because they're like that the whole time, man. But I can tell you that what they are doing is also losing their patience because they realize they can get to the next game without having to get to the next level. So that just kind of bothers me. Universally, we call it this medicated problem, ADHD. I actually don't think that's right. I think this term has to be rephrased to this. Always distracted hyper-doer. And here's why. Here come the generation of consumers that are no longer consuming content. We've now got the critic, the creator, and the curator of experiences. So guys, here comes the slash gen. These little bastards are these. They're the DJ, they're the blogger, they're the fashionista, they're the photographer, they're the influencer, they're the brand ambassador, have more tools, more capability, more audiences than we've ever seen before. And what I love about them is they love to produce great content. So check this out.
The building is on fire, fire.
So look, check this out. This is a little video clip that was just a news article. And this DJ, this young DJ called Michelle, took this and said, I can remix this to this contagious piece of content, which has been seen millions of times and just took off. But this came out about a month before this thing came out, which broke the internet, which I'm sure you've seen.
Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Back at it again with the white van. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Back at it again with the white vans. Thirsty, man. Damn.
So here's
Daniel.
the deal. I was watching this thing blow up on Reddit when I first saw this thing. I'm like, what the hell is this? I had no idea. And I was with the CEO of Van last 4 weeks ago. And I said, you guys didn't talk about this. He goes, why would I? I'm not targeting college kids. I'm targeting skate nerds. But their brand dialogue went up because they didn't react to this video. But it's amazing what happens when you empower the creators to do their own thing with content. That thing, last time I checked, had 25 million views. That piece of shit content. But it's incredible to think about what can happen. But you're sitting there thinking, hey man, old people can produce good content too. Really? Check this thing out. So this is a video by a guy called Joe Griffith. Now Joe went to Vegas for a vacation with his wife. He filmed his entire week's holiday, but forgot to turn the GoPro around. So what you end up with is this incredible piece of content where this guy had no idea what he was doing.
Canyon is, I'm not sure. I think it's that way.
Crazy, right?
That's the view looking down.
All right. Go look at it later. There's so much more to talk about. But just when you think you know where to put your brand's message, the group that you're trying to target are swarming to bright lights. And there's more and more and more places for you to come to. Now, brands love shiny objects. But the number one thing that I think is important here is that the audiences that you now have their own audience. So it's not about publishing something that feels like it's from you to one person. You have to feel like it's hyper-personalized for them to pass out to their entire network. So it's a many-to-many game, and it's changing because you want them to feel like they're the first ones to pass this contagious content around. And one of the ways they build content is through this, selfification. So selfies, or personal expression, is the new form of entertainment. This is what we're competing against. We're competing with people that are producing content and spending a lot of time producing this. And if you don't believe me, look at this. Extreme selfies are a thing. So this is the second tallest building in Hong Kong. You've got kids climbing to the top of these buildings and falling off because they're trying to get the most extreme selfie. There are more people dying from extreme selfies than shark attacks, which is crazy when I think about the world we're headed to. But look, even in UK, they're trying pay by selfie. So you can now, with your MasterCard, pay with your face as opposed to your thumbprint, which I think is just crazy. But is this generation a throw-up? How good's Banksy? No, it isn't a throw-up. There's research that we've done at AOL, which we're happy to send you, which tells you it's not about me, it's about we. And now here's an example. So what's fascinating for me is that every one of you today, if you represent a band, are being judged by popularity. Popularity is something that we're judged upon. We're treating our network like 11-year-old kids. We want to be the most popular person on the planet. But what's happening with the younger audience, guess what they're doing? Locking their networks down. So that's why Snapchat has become important. Or if I speak to high school kids or all the university children, if I ask them who's on Instagram, all the hands go up. Let's do this now. Who's on Instagram? Hands up. Keep your hand up if your Instagram is set to private. So your hands go down. If I do that to school kids, boom, 100% of the hands stay up. They love these interconnected locked networks. And the reason for that is there's actually been a surge of insecurity around the open social graph. So one thing that I can tell you is this. If closed networks are coming, it's going to be harder to tap into those audiences. And it's unlike the open social graph that we've had experienced for in the last 10 years. Now, if you can reflect back cultural changes, marketing as a brand, you start to win the game. Here's an example of a brand that did it really, really well. Procter & Gamble.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Oh. Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
How good is this? I mean, it's so good, otherwise we'll burst into tears. But what I can tell you is this. In 2006, I coined the phrase defriend unfollow. So I was saying that people are going to go into their networks and they're going to do a stock take of all of these people that are in their network, and they're going to realize they just want a tribe. They don't want to hang out in the big city. They want to hang out. And so it is happening. I just missed it by several years. As that people are going through now and understanding that it's all about smaller, closed networks, interconnected networks. Because as soon as something is niche, it blows up to be mainstream, and then people want it to go back to be niche because they don't want to hang around in places that are too popular. That's something you guys need to think about. But the value of the younger generation is this. They want to achieve happiness, spend time with their family and friends, be true to themselves, and be financially stable. Now, these values are more closely aligned to their grandparents' generation than their parents' generation. They have a different way of expressing it. They're way too busy to get all their information from feeds, but they're going to represent a $2.45 trillion spend by 2025. That's why every brand I know wants to target this audience. But what's fascinating to me is that they use a lot of devices per day. One of the reasons why they use those devices is they're completely bored. Now, I'm of the generation that when the sun came up, my parents used to boot me outside and say, don't come in until the sun comes down. But today, that playground is a screen. So a lot of people are super bored, and a lot of things that they're going to those screens for, these young adults, they're looking for entertainment. And that's really one of those big things that they're looking for. And it turns out that 75% of women under the age of 25 give a shit about a brand, and they care about a brand's principle over its price. So they care about it. So brands like Tom's Shoes can pivot to be coffee company, or a brand like Warby Parker from New York on La Sotica, the glasses company, who make about 90% of all the glasses that we have on the planet. So it's really about the brand's person over the persona of a brand. That's making human connections better using technology, brothers and sisters. Now, these terms you may not be familiar with. These are terms that describe the younger generation of the millennial, the post-millennial generation. And what's interesting is that these kids have old world values. They talk in a language of acceptance and encouragement. This is really interesting. And then you have brands like these guys trying to target them.
She's the most mosquito Barbie ever. Totally hot, totally cool, totally mosquito Barbie. So fierce. Look at the shoes.
So what's happening here? This is the first brand I've seen that's really trying to challenge the audience here and saying, we believe in transgender, we believe in gender equality, and they're embracing it through brands like Barbie, which I think is quite ironic. But what's also fascinating is that post-millennial, there was a survey done of these kids to say, hey, if you don't like being called millennial, what are we going to call the younger generations? Instead of us coming up with a term, these young kids, like I'm talking 10 and under, were asked, what would you like to be called? And they said, we would like to be called founders. So it's fascinating that we're empowering these younger audiences to really take hold of what this means in the future. All right, let's move on. It tells us that creativity, the thing that you're here for over the past 2 days, not just the networking, but understand that creativity has been redefined. And it's been redefined. What gives me confidence about that is Adobe did a survey of art directors recently, and said of the art directors surveyed, 88% said the best days are yet to come. 79% said they trust their gut instinct over technology, which helps give them control. So it's fascinating because you're no longer in the advertising business. You're in the content business. But if you're in the content business, you're not competing with advertising, you're competing with popular culture. So everybody with a smartphone is a photographer and a publisher today. You're competing against everybody, and that's the challenge today. Now, people's behaviors are influenced by their peers. So peer-to-peer marketing is really a strong point here. And what we're trying to get them to do is this human condition. All of this stuff that we're trying to use technology for is just part of what we are as humans. And then Facebook come out with emojis, wow, and laugh out loud and all that shit. What I'm looking for are much stronger emojis. Things that allow you to work, want, purchase, desire, sympathize. And the one I like most is share. The one I don't like most is like. I think likes are rubbish. I love shares because shares are they're a push. They say, I want you to actually look at this content. It's share. The vast majority of shares have a link to content, and that's what we're trying to do here. But I would argue that it's not about real-time marketing. I don't want to hear from brands all the time. I only want to hear from you when it's relevant to me. So it's less about real-time marketing. It's about marketing at the right time, right place. And, if you're going to get it right, you need to be transparent. Now, a transparent brand can do two things. When you get transparent, you sometimes don't get it right, and you can either wait for the storm to pass, or you can lean into your mistake. You can turn it into a negative into a positive. And this is an example of a brand that did. Let me just cut to the chase. This is a brand of cereal, and they said, hey, we love everybody. Wholesomeness was their hashtag. We love interracial relationships, gay relationships. We don't care. We love all relationships. And people said, but your products stink. And so they could have either waited for the storm to pass, or they could have lent into it. So they lent into it. They hired these two artists to do something with that negative sentiment. They printed off all the negatives, and they turned it into this beautiful sculpture, and they turned a negative into a positive. And this is an example of what happened. They turned it into love. And it turns out that their brand sentiment went up 10 times. So this thing, the reaction to the negative is 10 times more important than the 30-second TV spot that they built. However, the world is overwhelming. You are hit with 1,900 messages per day. Then it's underwhelming because you can't find what you're looking for. In fact, one of the largest contributors to stress, which is stressing us out and killing us, is information overload. So the shit that you're producing is stressing people out and killing them. And in fact, 12 times a day, my leg or falls vibrate. I suffer from the phantom phone vibration syndrome, which is akin to having a cocaine habit, I'm told. But this is what's amazing. This is all we have to care about, attention. The only thing we should care about is not attribution, not click-through rate, not that contribution. I'm talking about attention. Why? Because we've all got it. We've all got the same disorder. We're all looking at this screen, and we've all had it in our hands at the same time. This is not a young person's game. This is every person's game. And it doesn't matter whether I'm on a subway in New York, where I live, where I'm hanging out in an airport, where I'm at a concert, whether I'm somewhere in immigration. It doesn't matter whether I am. We're all suffering from the same bloody thing. We're all suffering from tech neck. We're all distracted. And what's interesting about that is that here in France, you guys way over-index. There's a bunch of you that walk around with two phones. Your home phone and your work phone. You just rubber band that shit together, man. It's called life. But it's incredible how you way over-index on mobile connections. And if you don't believe me, a friend of mine sent me his 16-year-old son's data plan. Look at the talk time, 0. Look at his data plan. It's almost blown through the roof. It's incredible to see what happens. But so many people treat mobile like an infant. In fact, 97 seems to be more interesting to me because I could text message Coca-Cola's vending machine and interact with their products. What we need to do is get back to experimentation. Why? As an ambassador of media, I apologize that this is the best thing we could have come up with for advertising on mobile. Look how crappy those ads are. Shit. And what's amazing for me is that there's also crappy apps. So this is my Starbucks app. I live in New York City. That shows me a map of North America. Awesome. And then this thing I paid $1.99 for, which is how long can I hold down my thumb for on my iPhone screen. That's the sort of stupidity that's out there, and I'm buying that shit. But there's millions of opportunities for you like this. 88% of what people do on their phone today is app-driven. It's not about the mobile web. It's all about apps. But people download fewer of them. They spend more time, more money than the ones we have. The average number of apps you have on your smartphone is 40. The average number you use is 5. So it's harder to get people to download them. So unlike advertising traditionally on newspaper, radio, television, etc., you can iterate your way there. When it comes to this device, no can do. You have to provide a different type of value and utility. That's our opportunity as creators. And if you get it right, most people become your power user. So almost 80% of people that give a shit about your brand here become a power user. So as we move to advocacy, word of mouth, peer-to-peer, and away from awareness-based advertising, we now have a different way to engage people. That's the new. And imagine what you guys can invent with something that's in your pocket, that's always on, that's always logged in, that's always with. Imagine what you guys can do with that stuff. Incredibly powerful 3 things as an opportunity to disrupt this environment of mobility. But please keep it simple. Not my quote, Da Vinci. I love this quote. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Be the calm in the chaos. Let's talk about chaos for a second. Let's talk about the revolution in media. So this is why we're partners, most of you in the room. This is how I pay rent. It's all through media. Now, back in the day, this was media planning. 7 places to buy media when I was a kid. Then I used to go out and have big, bad, long lunches with my media planners. Those days are well over. Because the average CMO has to think about these places to have a touch point with consumers. That's why the average consumer, in my mind, the average CMO is in the job 18 months. Because this is what consumers are expecting. These are just some examples of where consumers are expected to have relationships with brands. Now, everybody I speak to wants to target everybody on the planet. Then they want to have a deep, intimate relationship with them. I'm like, well, how are you going to do that when the machines come to take your job? Isn't it all about automation now? No, it's not. We're human by design. So as much as you think that programmatic might be problematic, it's here to stay, and it's awesome. Because it allows you to target the right person, right place, right time. What it doesn't allow you to do is have the right messaging. Because if you have a great message today, some poor bastard is sitting at that agency 3 a.m, knocking out all of those variations of a great idea you have. So I would like to see artificial intelligence and bot technology layered across programmatic advertising. So for scaled media, we get smarter at how that planned, and then the creatives can get on, the humans can get on with better creativity. Because I was told creatives are no longer in charge. Really? 70% of people would rather read about a brand than be advertised to. That means we love brands, we just don't like things that stink. We love to be able to connect with people. Then along came native. Now the problem with native advertising is very naive. Put your brand in places you can't buy media, and then buy your scale media everywhere. Here's the best example I can show you. So in the US, this is a real estate website that's used by mothers and women. So what these guys did, Mattel, the makers of Barbie, they put Barbie's house, they listed its photo editorial spread. They listed her house for sale in Malibu for $25 million. I think that's a brilliant piece of native advertising. Cool. So continue doing more of that. Here's the opportunity. Marketing always follows the audience's behavior. The audiences are outpacing you today as a marketer. Why? It's this. People are like this, aren't they? They're face down on a phone where there are no ads. So you have to act differently. That's the opportunity for you guys today. Righto. So ecosystems are coming. So an ecosystem is the ability to go from desktop to mobile to connect. So if I go into Google and type in Adidas and I check out some kicks on an Adidas website, then I tab over to Facebook and check out my Facebook for a while, and an Adidas ad will turn up. It's called behavioral retargeting. We've been doing that for centuries. You guys have been buying that for a long time. You minimize your browser, you pick up your cell phone, you head to lunch. The path to purchase today is destroyed. But I believe moments are coming where I can target that person and say, hey man, here's those kicks. Here's turn-by-turn directions to a store and discount coupons to egg you on. Ecosystems and moments are coming. Okay. What about data? So great. A creative dude's going to talk about data for a few minutes. So stay with me though. I know it's dark in here. You all want to have lunch. But just stay with me for a couple of minutes about data. Because without data, there's no creativity. Without creativity, there's no data. So let's get this sorted. Now, I used to do this thing called run and done as a kid. It's a term you may not be familiar with. But we used to just run these campaigns and hope to God the sales come in. And then if they didn't, you'd work on the cover your ass campaign. But here's what it does. Data allows you to run scenarios with probable effect. You can forecast and you can cover your ass early. The other thing it does is this. It allows you to move beyond retail. Now, here's an example. People go out and buy stuff, you want gratification. But when you think about these younger audiences, they want hyper gratification. Now, what's an example of that? This. So Domino's ran a campaign that said, when you tweet out an emoji of a pizza, we'll send you a pizza. Do you think you can do that with no data? No way. There's a mountain of data that went into play to get this thing sorted. So, when you know where somebody is, you know the proximity of where they are, what that gives you is context. And what context gives you is the ability to deliver experiences that move beyond ads and starting to deliver value and utility and act differently as a brand. And that's where we need to get to. Could you be inspired by data? Yes. Here's an example of one. This is a bacon company in the US. They went through their Facebook data to find out who's flagged themselves as single and likes bacon, and they matchmake. That's one. Here's another one. This is a physical product called Camera Restrictica. This camera will not allow you to take a photograph of things that are photographed. which I think is crazy. But anyway, that's real. So look to the signals of data, because the signals, and you create this little happenstance, could be some creative thinking that never would have found if you just look at the noise of data. So please look to signals of data. It was personal. It's now contextual. But where it's headed in the future is predictive. And that's where I think artificial intelligence comes into play. All right, a couple more minutes on stuff that I think is hot. Your brand needs to be an experience. If you're in the world, and I get a lot of brands that do this to me, they're like, oh, look, Shingy, we get this whole digital thing, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, cool. How much do you spend on your marketing budget on television? Oh, 80% of our marketing budget. Oh, you got digital, my ass. But if you're going to build 30-second TV spots, make them different like this. It turns out, sorry, fart joke before lunch, how dare I? It turns out that the number one thing that allows people to want to share content quickly is surprise. So please build in surprise into your experience. What about the environment you're buying today, like outdoor billboards and stuff? Can you be inspired by that? Yeah, you can. Here's an example of Apple. They understand that when you take a photograph on your iPhone 6, it could be blown up to be billboard size. And guess what? This is not professional photography. This is you and I. So it's democratized. They understand that photography has been democratized. Amazing. Audi in Japan. They realized that everyone in Japan thinks that Audi means big cars. They took a traditional newspaper ad out. They this poster that you pull out, and it shows you the size of an Audi A3 that you can put in your parking space. And then they connected it with an augmented reality app. So it shows you a 3D version of your car in your parking space. And then they ran a competition and said, put the Audi in places that are unusual. So that's why you end up with an Audi on a skateboard rink. So the idea is you could start with traditional, but end up with an experience, and that's where your brand gets extended in whole new ways, I believe. What about reinventing your product? So a lot of us, we represent brands that products really need to be reinvented. So here's a good example that I'm inspired by. So Coca-Cola in Vietnam realized that their bottles still end up in landfill. They still end up as trash. So what they did here, though, is they ended up inventing new types of bottle tops. So you end up with a different product. So it becomes a pencil sharpener, a bubble blower, a water pistol. So this product has a second life and doesn't end up in the trash so much. So I think that's a really good example of reinventing your product. That could become your marketing. What about everyday hacks? So we are part of a culture today, guys, where people want to make stuff and they want to hack stuff. So what are you doing to embrace that culture? Like adult coloring books are new. People who actually go home and spend hours coloring in on these coloring books. So what are you doing to reflect back culture within your marketing? Here's one that I got inspired by. Check it.
In many countries, DHL has more locations, more vehicles, and more employees. That's why DHL is faster. However, to communicate this with a classic advertising campaign is expensive. So why couldn't the competitors advertise for DHL? For that purpose, giant packages were taped all over with thermoactive foil and cooled down below the freezing point. In this way, the competitors picked up a black package that transformed back at temperatures above freezing and delivered the message in the most beautiful colors.
Pretty cool, right? So look, context matters. Good content, put it in smart places. Easy for me to say, extremely hard to do. Here's an example of one we've all seen. So if you've seen this by Volvo, I'm on a can line for distributing this video, so it's probably because of us. But this video has been seen by a lot of people, but not a lot of us have driven a Volvo truck before, or ever backed one out. But what's also interesting is Volvo didn't stop there. Instead of just doing advertising with dirty, great big buttons on, they did this. They've invented a product called light paint. So what they're doing is they're experimenting with engaging with people in different ways. Now, they understand that a lot of people don't drive Volvo trucks, but they make sure that people can still be seen. So they've actually invented paint that you paint on yourself to glow in the dark. It's about the shared road. They went back to their brand DNA and said, look, by 2020, we don't want anybody killed by a Volvo or in a Volvo. So they're trying to invent new products to try and, you know, become new and different and relative. And that's the thinking about relative. To connect with humans, you need to come back to being relevant. So go back to your brand DNA. Because in the world that we're in today, guys, we're in a world that's very verbal. We're in a world that's very visual. And these two things combined give you this new visceralness. There's not one woman in the house, I need to explain, who makes that shoe. Even just the power of a color can be very, very important to you as you move forward. These little tiny things matter when it comes to engaging with the new economy. Trying to build tribal loyalty is hard work. Mac versus PC is 14 years old. People still talk about it. But the thing that's changed in this time frame is this. When you think about it, you are not the hero. The audience is the hero. The people that wear your brand, the people that engage with you are the ones that their story need to be told. Ray-Ban never advertise their glasses. They advertise the legends that wear them. That's a very good example of a brand that gets it right. But also, if you can be the calm in the chaos, if you can focus, you can cut through this clutter. Now, Nike's tagline, you all know, is just do it. But I'm sure nobody could tell me what Reebok's is. And it's fascinating that's their new logo. Amazing. But what's incredible about this is Nike Just Do It was launched in 1985. And now when I speak to Nike freaks today and talk about Nike Just Do It, they talk about Nike Just Helps Me Do It. So they understand they're more of a tech company than a power brand. So, as much as we're in a fragmented world, don't be afraid of that. Embrace the fragmentation because we now know where we have these intimate relationships with people and we can have these deep, intimate conversations. And that's the fusion that I think has happened now. And fascinatingly, one of those best ways to engage with people is video. Video will continue to be everywhere. We're in a world that are freaky for it, and we love to be shown stuff. Steve Jobs had this quote, "A lot of times people do not know what they want until you show them." It's the power of story. And you can tell them in 6 seconds or as long as you can hold people's attention. We are no longer locked in the world of 30s and 60 TV spots. You can tell stories in 6 seconds. Look, like this. Amazing. So bloody good, we'll watch it 10 times. But look, I would argue that the most overused word in our industry today is storytelling. And I would argue that it's less about the telling and it's more about the story. And you can end up with something as inspiring as this.
Don't thank me. Thank the savings.
You can't skip this Geico ad because it's already over. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
So Geico are a fairly large insurance company in the US. They're one of the largest advertisers. They produced this video that said, in 6 seconds, this is our value. And they let the camera keep rolling. And you end up with 3 minutes of this amazing content that you can't take your bloody eyes off. And look how big the Geico logo is. It turns out that 70% of people don't care if something is blatantly branded or subtly branded. But this is an example of a brand that just understands the context of their content. And check this one out, that Apple just launched.
We're ready on set. Let's roll camera, whatever you want to say.
Me good. Me ready.
Let's take 5.
Siri, you in there?
Hey, Cookie Monster.
You know me. She know me. Me gonna give you a cookie, Siri. Who's saying that? Was that Siri? Is it ready yet? How about now? 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 What is that? It's ghost cookie. Me no have watch. Siri, is this annoying? Oh, me. Ow.
What happened?
Oh, me.
What happened?
Me got hit with slate. Oh. Me okay. Me okay. Me trooper. Cookie's ready! Cookie's ready! Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy! Cookie's ready! Thank you, Siri! Hey, Siri. Good night.
Good night.
Me wish me could close me eyes.
So here's what's amazing. That's about 2 minutes of content that is going to be seen over hundreds of millions of times, I'm sure. And that is so much more important than any 30-second TV spot that Apple could do. And two things they've done. They've humanized their brand. They've even played around with their logo at the very end there. This is a concept of understanding what it's like to connect with people based on the person. And the version before that with Geico, Geico's theory is that they treat their brand like a portfolio. They do a lot of work that none of us see. But when it starts to become contagious, they use traditional media to amplify, but it starts in digital. But if you're sitting there saying, hey, look, man, we're not one of the largest insurance in the world. We're definitely not Apple. How do we tell story? You don't have to be either of those. You just need a great story that builds good content. And here's an example of one that I'm always inspired. Check this out.
Good, White. Good boy. Yeah. Good, White.
Turn on the ignition. Let's go. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good boy. Good boy.
Ride with me.
Good boy.
On the streets right now.
So let's unpack this. This is a dog rescue company out in New Zealand, man. All they're trying to do is say that we don't want any dogs to be killed. They teamed up with Mini. They created these videos. Each of them go for about 3 minutes each. That's 10 minutes of brand love. That'll never, ever be a 30-second TV spot. They could never afford that. This has been seen in the millions. In fact, this has been seen 100 million times. And the cost of doing this is really low in comparison to some other content you could produce out there. But the power of a great story done in the great context is this. You guys don't even give a shit what I'm saying. You want me to sit down and watch this damn thing. You're amazing. That dog drives better than my mum. Drives me crazy. But it's incredible what can happen, man, when you just think about the content of context. So, it's no longer good enough to remix budgets anymore. We need to reframe. That's invention. We need to invent some shit. That's the power of what we need to do. It's also finding the right people. It's not about influencer. It's about the power of the right person. We also need to find ecosystems of moments. It's no longer about day-part advertising. It's absolutely about ecosystems. Like when and where people want to be connected with and what are their needs based upon, not day-parting. You need to make sure that your brand is given up to consumers. You no longer own your brand. If you don't believe me, go into Pinterest and type in your brand. You'll see that people want to dick around with it. Why not empower them to actually build content on your behalf? You have to bring in digital and physical teams together. I talk to brands and say, our physical product team's over here and our digital marketing team's over here. I'm like, what? These two have to come together because at the end of the day, there is no future of digital marketing. It's just marketing in this digital world. The same thing. It's the same vocabulary. And the other thing is you guys have to pioneer. That means celebrating stuff that doesn't always work. We can't just celebrate the things that win awards. We have to celebrate pioneering, which means sometimes we fall forward. Because that's really what happens. The sooner you fail, the faster you get to succeed. And that's the power where we are today, and that's the opportunity for you guys. And why I have a complete and utter inspiration about being with you today, why I love what I get to do, is this incredible quote by Katharine Hepburn I'm reminded by, which is, a lot of times, if you obey the rules, you miss all the fun. And that's the reality of why we became creative marketers to start off with. Thanks very much, guys. Enjoy your lunch. Take care.